Dillian the Body Snatcher right here. It's a champ. Big up to Sporting Icon. Subscribe. Otherwise, I might pay you guys a visit.
Now, of course, I do talk a lot about the sanctioning bodies and their importance to boxing. And of course, a lot of it is through criticism. Some people say that maybe I'm a little bit too critical. Some people say maybe I'll talk about sanctioning bodies a little bit too much. But they are important to boxing, which is why I do it. Which is why I've done a recent video on who you believe is the best sanctioning body. One will follow this one at some point, where who you believe is the worst sanctioning body. And of course, I'll go through all the reasons as to why you believe that they're the best or the worst. And I will point out the criticisms. Of course, I'll point out the positives in that as well. Because all sanctioning bodies do serve a purpose. But of course, people will say that there's too many belts. That seems to be the worst one. The politics, the corruption and the biasness and all that kind of thing. And which is why I talk about it a lot, because it is important. Because it's one thing to say, bin off all the sanctioning bodies and follow the UFC model. Well, I think boxing's a bit too long in the tooth now to be following a different kind of model. Okay, a total restructure is going to confuse a lot of people. It really will. It really is. And of course, a lot of people within boxing probably won't go for that. So are we likely to see that? Very unlikely. But I want to talk about the Ring magazine in this particular video and its importance. Because while officially, and by the way, I don't know who makes up these rules. I have no idea. But the rules are that the Ring magazine is not an official sanctioning body. Meaning that if you was to have, say, two guys fight each other in a unification fight, the unification is only deemed as a unification if it involves the WBC, WBA, IBF, or the WBO. So the IBO doesn't really matter about the IBO. The Ring magazine doesn't really matter about the Ring magazine, apparently. But at the same time, for me, and in my own opinion, maybe you agree, maybe disagree, and that's fine, which is, I believe that the Ring magazine should be needed, especially when it comes to an undisputed. Because at the minute, we can look at, say, the heavyweight division. Okay, you got Anthony Joshua, he's got the WBA, the IBF, and the WBO. Three of the major four sanctioning bodies. Yes, he's got the IBO as well, but let's be real, who cares about that one? But Tyson Fury has got the last remaining belt, currently the WBC belt, to complete the four. But he's also got the Ring magazine. Now, in theory, Joshua, he can get rid of the IBO belt, just put it in the bin. Fury, he can get rid of the Ring magazine, put that in the bin. Them two fight each other currently, and it will be classed as undisputed, because you don't need the Ring magazine. For me, I disagree with that. Because it is pretty much, would it be fair to say it's the fans' belt? Whoever owns that belt, in theory, should be called the best of that division. It's the Rocky Balboa belt. It's a very, very old belt. It's belts that historical fighters have held in multiple different weight divisions and what have you. So should it not be given a bit more respect, where you should need it? People say that you only need the four. Again, who made up these rules? I don't know. But officially, you need the four belts. You don't need the Ring magazine. Well, why don't you need the Ring magazine? And the only thing that I can really come up with from my own perspective, and of course from a lot of you guys, for me talking about sanctioning bodies for forever, but which is they don't call mandatories. Now, the Ring magazine may look at that and go, really, is that it? How important is that? Well, to a fan, it's very important. How can you have a champion? Again, we'll use the heavyweight division as an example, because of course it is the weight division. It's the beacon, if you like, where people will know who's who. Tyson Fury is currently the Ring magazine champion. He's not going to be ordered to fight anybody in their top 10 rankings. So again, you could kind of look at it and say, well, what's the point in having Ring magazine rankings? For what reason? Because these guys are not going to be ordered to be fighting Tyson Fury anytime soon. He can fight whoever it is that he wants, as long as they are within a certain criteria. But they're not going to order Tyson Fury and say, okay, right, Tyson, you've got a Ring magazine belt. If you want to keep that belt, then you need to defend it against Anthony Joshua. Defend it against Dillian White. Defend it against Oscar Rivas. Defend it against Usyk or Joe George, whoever. Okay, they're not going to do that. And again, there's no real time limit. They kind of want you to defend it within a 2-year period. But again, 2 years is far too long, isn't it? It's far too long. I'm not 100% sure on that rule, but there are certain things that the Ring Magazine need to do. The Ring Magazine do need to order mandatories. You do need to. And do it on a timely scale, at least once a year. Ideally, a unification. You want to keep that belt, then unify. But again, at the same time, some people will say, but they're very biased because of their links with Oscar De La Hoya. I don't really need to go into that one. But again, I mean, how strong are those links? If you look at the ratings and the rankings, I don't really see too much bias towards Oscar De La Hoya fighters. Maybe there is. I mean, maybe if he had a bigger stable, maybe we'll see it a bit more obvious. For me, I don't really see it that way. Genuinely, I don't. So while Oscar De La Hoya, of course, he's got his links with them, but I don't think that they're overly biased towards Oscar De La Hoya. I don't think they're really overly biased to anybody. Yes, of course, they will say certain things and then go back on them. I don't agree with that. For me, you should always stick to your initial statement, which is when they stripped Tyson Fury of the Ring Magazine after 2.5 years out of the ring, then of course he announces he's going to make a comeback and he's going to take on Sir Ferguson Ferry. They then took the belt off Tyson Fury. They should have took it off him a long time ago. If they were going to take it off him a long time ago. But they took it off him because they weren't happy with his comeback opponent. Okay? So I can understand that, of course. But then they said the belt will not be put back into circulation unless it's going to be in an undisputed fight. That was a great rule. That was a very good statement. But they went back on it because they wanted it back out in circulation, which is why they put it on for Fury and Wilder in the rematch. For me, it should never have been on the line. It should have been for undisputed. And should have been ordered as well. But they don't order anything. They just allow their champions to do whatever it is that they want to do. It's pretty much an advertising tool. Whoever's walking around with it is an advertising for their brand, Ring Magazine. Come buy our magazines. Okay? But again, you have to look at it and say, then what's the point of your rankings? What's the point of your ratings? What's the point of having a 1 to 10 if it doesn't mean anything? It just means that's your opinion. It's no more valid than, say, BoxRec, is it? And who really takes BoxRec serious when it comes to the rankings? People, of course, will come up and say that the BoxRec is good for looking at who's fought who and who's about to fight who and whatever else and what their record was. That's great. But the rankings, let's be honest, are complete pony. It's pretty much in the same vein as the Ring Magazine. So anyway, the point is, if the Ring Magazine, in my opinion, want to become one of the major belts where you actually need it to be an undisputed champion, which I think you should, there should be a 5, not a 4. Should be a 5. Well, ideally, I mean, okay, let's be honest here. If we were to get rid of all the sanctioning bodies and just have one champion per weight division, which one would you choose? You'd probably go Ring Magazine, wouldn't you? That would probably be the belt, or create a brand new belt. The Sport and Icons World Championship. Let's do that. So I think that the Ring Magazine are in a prominent position here where they could become a needed one. But in Ring Magazine's eyes, they are. But in reality, they're not. Because you don't need it. You genuinely don't need it to become an undisputed champion or a unified champion. Tyson Fury is currently not a unified champion. He should be. But officially, he's not. Again, who makes these rules up? I don't know. Anyway, for me, I think that, in a nutshell, the Ring Magazine are very, very important to boxing. I think that they should come out with their own rules to say, okay, you need to be fighting and defending this belt against A, B, and C within this kind of time period. Do they take a commission off the fighters? I don't know if they do. Genuinely, I don't know. I mean, maybe that's something that I should have really looked at. I don't know if they take a percentage, like a 3%, which is usually what sanctioning bodies do. I don't know. But if they want to become the major player in boxing, they can. There's an opportunity here because fans and boxers and managers and promoters are very, very unhappy with the alphabet belts. The Ring Magazine, I'll copy you in on this. You need to make the amendment. You want to become the major player in boxing. Now's your opportunity. All you've got to do is create your mandatories and order them. That's pretty much all you've got to do. So for me, I think that the Ring Magazine is a major, major player in boxing, and it should be given a little bit more respect than what it is. I mean, I think that the fans give it respect The fighters give it respect, but for some reason, they can't get it over the line as being needed for a unification or an undisputed, which for me is wrong. Anyway, drop your thoughts below, click thumbs up, subscribe, catch you all in the next video.